Hey guys, and welcome to another vlog. I haven't done this in forever, and I know every time I post a video on YouTube, I swear I say that every freaking time. But yeah, I just felt like I'd give you guys an update of where I am in life, and I think I'm going to try to actually do a few more YouTube videos from now on. But we'll see. I'm really bad at making promises, I guess, so whatever. Apologies for the dark room. I got a purple light in the background. I could turn this light on, but yeah, it's a little creepy, so I don't think we're going to be doing that. Also, it kind of is distracting, so my eyes. So we'll just live with this for now. That's fine. This is fine. Everything's fine. So this is my new apartment. From this angle, it looks like a total trash heap. It's because my bed and my boxes of emptiness are in the background. So I just moved here in January, and it's May now. It's been about 4 months because it was the end of January. In any case, so I live in Phoenix, Arizona now. Fruit fly. So I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I got tired of the Utah culture out there. I couldn't take it anymore. I know I kind of spoke about a lot of the stuff that I was going through on my very first vlog. On my very first vlog. And I apologize if I end up repeating a lot of that stuff, just because it's been a while since I made that video, and I kind of just watched a little bit of it, and I was like, oh yeah, I did talk about that stuff. All right, cool. So I might just end up going off on a rant and talking about that stuff again, but you know, what are you gonna do? So I kind of want to make a video about doing nothing at work. And I realize that to some of you guys out there, that sounds pretty awesome, right? I mean, you get to just show up at your job, kind of sit around, and then you pretty much just get a paycheck for almost doing nothing. And I know I mentioned in my first video that, you know, when you get your bachelor's degree or whatever degree you get in engineering, you do a ton of math, and you're doing a lot of analysis. You work, sometimes they'll have you do lab work, and you actually have to write up a lab report, things like that. So obviously, from my experience, and everybody's experience is different, but from what I've experienced, no, it's a totally different world. And I know a lot of this stuff is talked about on, actually, if you guys want, there's a channel called Engineered Truth. And he actually saw the same thing in engineering, and now he just does his own like career advice channel. So, you know, feel free to give some credit to him. But so I'm probably gonna end up talking about some of the same stuff he's already talked about in the past, but I'm gonna do it anyways because it's nice to get this stuff out in the open. But doing nothing at work, it always sounds really luxurious. It sounds like, you know, like, oh, that's a dream job, right? You know, get paid to pretty much sit on your butt and just go home and then do whatever you want. But in my experience, again, there's something very strange about not doing anything at work. And I'm not talking about like going out of your way to avoid work, like, okay, I'm gonna not see the boss today, I was gonna hide under my desk and take a nap or something. I'm talking about like you're actually actively trying to get more work done and nobody's letting you do work. I know it sounds very strange, but hear me out on this one. So in my past engineering jobs that I've had, a lot of the times I've been given work. So usually like your first 2 weeks at a job for engineering, you kind of don't really do anything. You fill out HR paperwork, and you get tours around the office. You get introduced to a bunch of different people, et cetera, et cetera. So just like things like that. And sometimes you don't even have your computer yet, so you got to wait for that to come in, depending on how well they actually planned ahead. But So once you actually start getting work, and sometimes it could take up to like 6 months before you actually start consistently getting work, because I'm on the 4-month mark right now, and I'm still kind of like intermittently getting work done. So sometimes somebody will give me some of their work that they haven't been able to finish, and just because they actually need help with a lot of different things. And they're actually talking about hiring some more engineers out here in Chandler. That's another fun topic. Is I work in Chandler, but I live in Phoenix, and that's a fun commute. Wouldn't recommend it. Traffic out here is pretty bad, but I'm sorry if I keep looking down. I always like just looking at what the recording's looking like. It's hard to make eye contact with a little black rectangle on top of my monitor. In any case, so I've had moments where, depending on the company, we'll sit down for like a stand-up meeting. That makes no sense saying that out loud now. Sit up for a stand-up, or sit down for a stand down. Sit down, up, stand down. Anyways, so usually in those meetings you'll talk about, okay, I did this yesterday, we're gonna do this today, and this is the plan, whatever. It's a kind of like a almost micromanagement system, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do to keep your processes lean. So I have worked at places where, you know, it's like I fill out some spreadsheets or whatever, you know. I've talked about that in my first vlog too, where it's like, I don't really do engineering work, I just fill out spreadsheets. Yay! What's a design work again? What's Ohm's law? But you know, being the 27-year-old me, like, filling out spreadsheets isn't an 8-hour job. Like, a lot of the stuff I get is like, okay, I need to sign this form, or I gotta fill out this Word document, I gotta read this PDF. Reading will take a little bit longer for me, obviously, but, you know, filling out forms and stuff like that, like, a lot of it's just copy and paste, cut, paste, and it was like, read a thing, paste it into a report, and like, that's all it really is. So I guess that's kind of the reward of doing really hard work in engineering school, is getting jobs that are just kind of easy. But the problem is, you know, you spend like an hour doing this paperwork, and then you just sit there and you go, okay, well, now what do I do? And, you know, obviously the moral, I don't know if it's even the moral thing to do, but it's like, you know, the most efficient thing to do is to go to your boss or your supervisor or whoever and just say, hey, you know, I'm a little low on work and I need some more to work on. And unfortunately, when you're new to a company, it's like, well, we don't really know what we can give you because you don't know things. And it's like, yeah, but I'm an engineer, I can learn in like 10 minutes and figure it out. Because for me, I like quick paced things. I like, okay, I got this done, let's work on the next thing. Okay, I got that done, let's work on this thing. Okay, I'm having a problem with this, let's go ask somebody a question about it. But especially in big office environments, or like especially big defense contracting companies, where you pretty much live in a cubicle farm, it's so easy to get lost in the sea of people, and you're just kind of like another number of, all right, employee number 247, blah blah blah. Sometimes it feels like you don't even really matter. And so I've done that before, where I go to my boss and I say, hey, I'm a little low on work, and about 30% of the time they'll say, oh yeah, hey, I'll let you work with so-and-so who's a senior engineer and he needs some help with this. And I'm like, okay, great. And that works out great. And then I've had times where I go to that senior engineer and they're like, oh yeah, I can't give you anything because I'm still working on this, and I'll come to your desk later. And then 4 hours later, no one's come to your desk, and you're just like, okay, so like, am I supposed to just sit here? And so here's the thing about not doing anything. When you're in a moment like that, you can't help but think like, I'm gonna get fired. Like, especially with my mindset, where I can get a little pessimistic sometimes. I I cannot just sit there, because then I always get the feeling like my supervisor's going to come by and be like, hey, what are you working on? And be like, oh, nothing. And be like, oh, cool. Well, you know where the exit is, and here's your pink slip. Like, it's actually really nerve-wracking. It's really scary, because you don't know, like, what kind of job security is that where you can't, you ask for work and nobody's giving you work. Like, I mean, there are times where I just want to go home at that point. It's like, it's 2 p.m. and it's just like, well, if I'm going to do nothing here, I can also do nothing at home. Does that count as working remotely? And it's really, like I said, it's nerve-wracking. Your cortisol levels go up. Your stress just is consistently there. And you just, at that point, you're like, well, what reason is the company keeping me? Like, are they just going to fire me now? Like, somebody's just walk in and realize I'm watching YouTube videos, and it's be like, well, you're out, buddy. And I'm like, well, just give me some work to do. Like, I asked you already. So, I don't know. I've had multiple experiences where it's like, hey, I need more work. You either get more work, or they just kind of tell you to sit back in your office, and I don't know. Usually when times get low like that, I'll read like PowerPoint presentations that somebody made to, gain more knowledge of the product I'm actually working on. So I try to do things in the background, but there's only so much, like, especially when you're going days and days with the same thing. And it's really weird when you're going to a morning meeting and you say, well, I'm kind of low on work. And they're like, okay. And then nobody talks to you all day, and you're like, what the hell? Like, somebody said they were going to come to me and give me work. And another part, especially with defense contracting, is, so like, normally if you can't find work and you ask for work and you still can't get work, you can at least like go around, like clean up shop, go to places and like ask even like the technicians to see if they need help. Like, proactively going out there and trying to figure out what you can do to make the company more efficient. But with defense contracting, especially if you need clearances to things, they inhibit you from doing anything. It's like, I can't just go into the lab and like, oh, I'm going to make sure the oscilloscope works, or I'm going to make sure the resistor box is still functioning. You gotta, especially at places I've been at, you have to use your RFID card to get into most places. If you can't get into it, then you can't do work in there. And you're dependent on somebody else letting you in. And sometimes there's nobody in the lab. So even if you knock on the door, it's like, well, this was fruitful. So it's just like, and especially big companies where you get lost in the sea of things, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Janitorial things? Like, actually, the job I left in Utah, a lot of the stuff I did was janitorial. It was like, we'd have really slow periods of nothing going on. And I have to go out and mop the floor or clean the toilets, because we didn't even, our building was almost separated from the rest of the Air Force Base, so we had to pretty much do our own janitorial work. And I had to shovel snow. And a lot of people will be like, well, yeah, it builds character, but it's like, that's not really why I got my 4-year degree. And I've come to learn that, honestly, getting your bachelor's degree is pretty much meaningless. It pretty much says, hey, I can do engineering, but then honestly, the thing that really trumps engineering is management, because one of the biggest points I kind of left my other job was there really wasn't a whole lot of engineering going on, and there was a lot of program management, to the point where they actually had, I don't even know how many exactly, but we had like a family of program managers and almost no engineers. So it was a lot of people just, okay, we did this task, check. Okay, we did that test. And in spreadsheets too. Like, I even told my program manager, hey, there's software out there for task management, right? Like, there's Slack, there's Jira, which is a really good software I've used in another job. I think there's advertisements on YouTube for Monday.com too. Not a sponsor. But there's a bunch of software out there that helps you task management, and these guys are like, oh yeah, we fill out a spreadsheet, we put a check mark on it, and then we send it to another person who puts their task on it and puts a check mark on it, and then we send that to the Air Force and say, look at all these check marks we have. It's like, there's software that just, whatever. And that stuff like that really made me mad, where I tried helping and it just got shot down consistently. And like even other employees were like, yeah, that sounds great, why don't we just use that? And then our supervisor would be like, no. I'm like, it costs $5 for 10 people to be on it. And they're like, no. Okay, I guess we'll just stick with Excel spreadsheets, because that's always been historically good. It's just like, why reinvent the wheel? It's like, because there's more efficient wheels than just a stone wheel. Like, you can use rubber instead. It's just stuff like that always pissed me off. But they even talked about hiring more program managers. I remember there even being a time where we were opening up a lab back in Ohio. I wasn't part of it, but I just remember being on the teleconference, and they're like, well, we're going to have to hire more engineers for our lab, to run the lab, because you want someone scientific running it. I just remember a customer saying, oh, well, you know what you actually need is more program managers. I'm sitting there like, where do you have like 20 program managers? We need technicians. We need engineers to actually do the technical work. We have enough program managers. We're getting lost in the sea of program management and tasks and check marks, okay? We don't need more spreadsheets. It got really bad. I mean, I'll admit the job there was okay. Again, it was just kind of another job of, there really wasn't anything going on. It got boring really fast. It's really fun to go up to people and say, hey, I shot lasers at planes, but in practice, it was super boring and nothing ever really happened. And there were some cool people on the project, and I did some networking through that project. And the technicians we hired towards the end were really cool. Actually, to the point where I almost didn't want to leave, because the technicians were actually like normal people. Some of the people I worked with were kind of like, what the hell? Have you lived under a rock your whole life? And then just working with the technicians, they're just so down to earth, normal people. Like, they just talk about, going home to their wives and taking care of their kids, and oh, my health care kind of sucks, and we just have like just normal discussions with like normal people. And it was just weird to actually be in a working environment where I felt like I can actually just talk to other people. And I didn't feel that way with some of the project managers. It was just like, you talk to them and they're so focused on money, they're so focused on project management, that it's like, you don't even want to talk about alcohol with them, or like talk about beer. Like, yeah, I really like this beer. Or sometimes they almost feel more like robots than talking to other engineers, and that's messed up. But it was really nice to talk to those technicians and just be like, oh, this is what humans are like. I forgot. In some ways, I feel like they kind of saved me, but I couldn't stay at that job. There was no career growth going on whatsoever. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I mean, the PTO was good, the benefits were really nice, but I just couldn't do it. So now I'm in Arizona, working for a really nice company. I'm actually subcontracting, so my benefits are really bad right now, but I can make that another video too, about trying to get a job through recruiters and having to be a subcontractor, because that's what I did in Fort Wayne. It was bad. Right now it's not as bad just because the pay is really nice. But when I did it in Fort Wayne, the pay was bad and the benefits were bad. Like, I just remember the guy sitting next to me, like 2/3 of his paycheck went to his health care. And I was like, that is messed up, dude. Like, what's the point of paying you almost nothing if all that's going to benefits? It was bad. But, I guess I was kind of going off on a tangent, but doing nothing at work, the point I'm trying to get across is, when you do nothing at work, when you want to actually do things at work, it's stressful and it's not good for your health. I've had nights where I don't even sleep. Like, I've tried going to bed at 11 p.m. and I just lay there for 2 hours thinking, well, I just got to go back to work and fucking sit in a cube and rot away, where all my potential keeps going down, down, down. And it sucks. Like, that's all you can really say about it. It sucks. And it's kind of actually one of the reasons I left most of my jobs, is they get boring. And like, you can even go further into that, where if you do the same like repetitive tasks, Where like in Fort Wayne, I was troubleshooting the same stuff over and over again. And it's like, okay, well, the root cause of this problem is this. And they're like, oh, okay. And then sometimes they fix it and sometimes they don't. They're like, oh, that costs money. It's like, it's costing money to have the product test engineer test it and replace all these parts. And when the parts aren't even the problem. But it just gets old really fast. And things like that starts to feel like you're doing nothing. And as an engineer, you want to be challenged more. You want to learn more, especially when you come out of school and you're like, okay, I want to learn how to design things. I want to know how things work. And when you're just constantly replacing the same resistors, the same capacitors, the same ICs over and over and over again, it's just like you start having those moments of insomnia where you go to bed at night and all you can think about is, fuck, I got to go to work tomorrow. Shit, I got to go to work. I got to do this stupid thing I've done a million times already. And it's just like, okay, so this is my life for the next 30 to 40 years, is I'm just going to come into work, do the same thing I've done for a million times, it feels like a million years. And then I grow old. Hopefully I have enough to retire. And then now I'm too old to do any of the things I wish I had done when I was like 30 or in my, later 20s, which is where I am now. And I'm like, I'm trying to go on cruises and take vacations, and then it's just, I don't know, the 9 to 5 schedule, or in my case 8 to 5, because they do like 9-hour days. I just feel like my youth is leaving me. Like I'm not energetic. I'm tired all the time. I've been trying to work out. I've been doing more cardio lately, and I'm just still tired all the time. I'm stressed out. It's just, it gets to you after a while. And it's not, like I said, it's not healthy to live like that. To go to a job, you're stressing out because there's nothing to do, and then suddenly you get stuff to do. This is another weird part of it. Okay, is you do nothing. You can do almost nothing for like 3 days and no one gives a crap. And then suddenly somebody somewhere is like, hey, I need you to do this task like by today. And you're like, oh, okay, what? It's almost like your brain goes into standby, and then when someone gives you a task that needs to be done in like that day or the next day or whatever, you're like, whoa, wait, what? You want me to actually do work at work? What the hell's going on? And it actually, because you start getting into the mindset of, well, I'm just at work. I guess I exist. I'm going to get my paycheck later. And then someone actually asks you to do work. Your reaction will either be, oh, okay, sweet, I have work to do. That's actually been what I've wanted for a while. Or, wait, I gotta do work now? What the hell? I was getting paid to do nothing. And it's such a weird, like, what's the word? Contradicting thought process where you're sitting there like, man, I wish I had something to do. And then someone gives you something. You're like, wait, I didn't actually want to do something. But I've learned that it's always better when that happens, because it's like, oh, it makes the day go way faster, and it's like you're actually doing something. You're like, oh, I can actually earn the paycheck. I can, give a reason to my boss why I still have a job. It's such a weird position to be in. My parents, they've never been in positions like that. Like my mom's she's been a nurse, and that's a stressful job. You're like always doing things. And I've told her that I've done nothing at work. She's like, how is that even possible? I've told my dad the same thing. He's worked in like construction, installing HVAC, and he's like, that sounds awesome. And I'm like, no, it isn't. He's like, yeah, okay, I can see if you come home from work and you realize you've done nothing and you just feel shitty about yourself. And it's like, yeah. So it's stressful. It raises your anxiety. It makes you depressed. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. Like I've had some really dark times in my life where I've just laid in bed and I don't even want to go to work. I don't even want to get up out of bed and like talk to other people. And this is why, like, sometimes, especially in the past, not so much lately, but in the past, I've talked to my old friends and things. They're like, man, you're just kind of depressing to talk to. And I'm like, I'm sorry. This is just, my job makes me this way. And then they always tell you, oh, you're not your job. You're not your job. Whatever. You got to be a person outside of work. And I'm like, I spent 4 years of my life to become an engineer because I really wanted to be an engineer. Like, I've always had an engineering mindset outside of school. And then for that to fail and fall apart, it's like, okay, I go to my shitty engineering job, and then now I have to try to do engineering at home. And it's like, I don't have oscilloscopes. I don't have power supplies. I don't have a lab set up at home. Like, I can't just do engineering at home. And maybe that's an excuse. I have done like FreeCAD stuff. I do have a 3D printer. So I have done some like 3D modeling and stuff. But that's not electrical engineering. And like, they have Arduino boards and stuff, but it's like, okay, well, you almost have to reach a point where you just have to be okay with just doing whatever with stuff like that. Because for me, it's really hard to learn things if I don't have a purpose for it. So like, I can go out and buy actually I have an Arduino board, and I used it with a mini robot arm. But it's like, once that project was done, I'm like, okay, well, now I just have a little plastic robot arm that's sitting around with some motors in it, and it doesn't do anything. It's like a little toy. And it kind of helped me learn some Adafruit, but a lot of that stuff was copy and paste. It was just like, okay. And it just feels ridiculous to have to do engineering work at home and then go to work, which is an engineering company, and just fill out forms. And it's like, this isn't what life is supposed to be. So it's really hard not to be depressed when you're talking to other people and they ask you about your job and you're like, well, I basically sit there and fill out spreadsheets, and they're like, cool. So anyways, Tim, how's you know, it's almost embarrassing at that point. That's why I'm almost at a point where I'm going to start my own business, because I just don't feel fulfilled anymore. You know, like my current job's not bad, but I still, and I'm sure you can kind of tell by the point at this point that I've jumped jobs a bunch of times, and a lot of it was because salary. And a lot of times, like, the only time you're going to get a raise that's a significant raise is by jumping companies. And it kind of sucks that you have to do that, but whatever. I mean, I've kind of used it to my advantage just because I'm in Phoenix, Arizona now. I used to live in Ohio, I lived in Indiana, and I lived in Utah, and now I live in Arizona. So I've definitely been traveling more, but I mean, here's the other problem I run into now is, now I'm working an 8 to 5 job, and I'm tired every weekend. Like, I'm tired after work too, and I have barely enough energy to go to the gym. But it's like, I've been here for 4 months, right? And I've barely done anything here in Phoenix. Like, I have some time in the weekends now, and a lot of it's just been, I've been kind of short on cash because the move here was kind of expensive, and they barely gave me any relocation assistance. So, like, I just haven't, and it's a big part of it's just energy levels. I'm just tired all the time. I'm doing the keto diet. I've done it for a while now, and I've had moments where I'm kind of energetic, but I'm still tired. And it's like, I've changed my diet a bunch of times, and it's still tiring. But that's not what this video is about. That could be a whole different topic, or hell, that's other channels have talked about that. And I realize there's keto flu and whatever, but I've gotten through keto flu, trust me, I know what that is. But even when I get past it, I'm still like exhausted. But in any case, but the energy levels, I think, are more of the mental state I'm in, where it's like I said, you go to work, you do nothing, and you just get sad and depressed and anxious because you're like, well, why did I even get hired? Now I have no specialized skills. That's another thing too, is now I'm going to try to learn web development on my own. I'm going to try to do some like JavaScript and CSS, and HTML doesn't seem too bad now that I had some brief introductions to it. So I'm going to try to learn that. Honestly, I just learned WordPress and created my own website. It's called Corey'sCurios.com if you want to go check it out. I guess I'll put a link in the description, but I used WordPress to develop that after just watching a YouTube video for an hour. That's shit they don't even teach you in school. I think they teach JavaScript for like computer science, but a lot of the stuff that's like in demand is stuff that you don't even learn in school, which is another thing you'll hear from Engineered Truth. But it's so aggravating to get to work and then nothing's going on. It's the most boring thing of your life, and you just feel like your soul is leaking, like you're just dying on a intangible level, you know? And I think that's a big part of, like, you get home, you're anxious and you're tired, and somehow you can't sleep. It's just like, it's just a roller coaster of just terribleness, really. And I don't know, it's just like, I've gone to the art museum here, I've gone exploring. I actually just went to a restaurant. It was like Lolo's Chicken and Waffles. Oh, so good. But yeah, I really haven't had time to just go out and explore Phoenix more. And I'm planning on, you know, going to some hiking trails and everything. But I mean, some days I wake up and I'm like, man, all I want to do is stay home. Like, I'm tired, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. Like, it's just so, I don't know, it's just so, I feel like I'm just out of it all the time and everything just feels like a blur. I'm trying to get a little bit better about it now. Part of it might be a little bit of agoraphobia, where sometimes I'm just afraid to go out there and meet people. But lately it's been a little bit better. Like I said, I went out to the restaurant. It's not really like full blown agoraphobia where I'm super scared to leave. As long as I get myself out of the apartment and walk around, after that it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But yeah, like this whole, like I said, doing nothing at work, it always sounds good on paper, and then when you actually do it, it's mind numbing, and it's actually kind of scary where your mind will go. And you have to like distract yourself with little things. And in fact, I was actually trying to teach myself web development at work, where my job isn't to learn web development, but since there's nothing else going on, I'm learning web development. Oh, and I totally went off on a tangent. Well, I learned WordPress.org. Like, if you go to WordPress.org and they have software, it's like it's almost like a GUI interface of making a web page. So you basically, I don't know if anybody's familiar with LabVIEW, where you basically just click and drag icons and that's your thing. Like, okay, here's this if-end statement, done. That's basically what WordPress is. It's like web development for, I don't want to say for dummies, but it kind of is for dummies. But I'm a dummy, so it works out pretty well. But yeah, you just click and drag things and you just change the margins, and it's like, oh, look, I made a website. It's actually a really cool tool, and they've made tons of plugins and everything. People develop crap for it all the time. So I put WordPress on my LinkedIn profile, and like within a couple of days there were people like, oh hey, are you familiar with HTML and CSS, and are you familiar with web development? And I was like, I literally just put WordPress down. I've never had this many messages on LinkedIn when I put down, oh, I got my electrical engineering degree. People are like, that's cute. Because it's just, to me, it feels like electrical engineering especially is saturated. And there's not really a whole lot of room for growth. And but the good news is a lot of companies have senior engineers, and a lot of those senior engineers are baby boomers. And a lot of the baby boomers are actually retiring at the moment, and they need somebody to take their place, which at this point is kind of like my generation. People have already been slaving over a desk and either doing nothing or doing a ton of work. And I'm sure those people will start taking their places. But I mean, I've had times where I look at the senior engineers and I'm like, is that really where I want to be in like 20 years? And you just, like, some of the senior engineers I've seen at my current job, all they do is design cables. And we already have a tool that does it for you. Like, you put in the inputs, you tell them what gauge wire it is, and it just spits out a diagram for you and goes, here you go. And they're like old, they have gray hair, they're balding, like, and that's just their life. They come in, design a cable, and go home. Like, it just seems like that can't just be what life is, right? And unfortunately, I mean, somebody's got to do it, but it's just such boring work. It's just like I said, I've had times where I just sit in bed like, is this really where my life should go? And yeah, I don't know. It gets, and that could be a whole other video that I'll probably do about just like some of my anxiety and my stress levels and everything that I've had. Like I said, I've almost thought about just quitting engineering and just becoming a web developer, and that's my path. I mean, some people are totally happy with sitting at a desk and doing paperwork and then going home. And that's fine, because like I said, not everybody can be a manager. Not everybody should be I don't want to say underling, but that's kind of what it is, because then there's no managers. So it is like a fine balance of who needs to be at the top, who needs to be at the bottom, etc., etc. But at the same time, it's just like, come on, man. This stuff gets ridiculous. But all right, I think I've gone on long enough. Feel free to write in the comments below about what you guys want me to talk about. Let me know if I even went into enough detail for this video, because I could probably talk about doing nothing at work for a long time, kind of like I did here. I don't even know how long this video is. Oh, already half an hour. Great. So anyways, just to sum everything up, I already said it a million times, but doing nothing at work sounds good. It isn't. Like, do not stay at a job where you don't do anything, because it'll eat at your mind, and you'll get dumber, you'll get fatter. Sitting at a desk especially just makes you sedentary and fatter. I usually have to get up from my desk and walk around just to make sure I'm getting blood flow. You don't learn anything. It's stressful. You never know when you're just going to be fired because you're not doing anything, even though your boss hasn't given you anything to do. It's a bad time. It's not a fun experience, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Smash that like button. All right, but you know how to use YouTube, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.